You are now listening to the Where's the Line podcast with Joseph West and Britt Dillard. Enjoy the show.
Milton gonna take a shot wide open and just strutting in is Keaton. Joe Milton does it again.
Borgie again on a blitz. Levis pocket collapses. He's on the run. He just heaves it up. And it's intercepted by Vanderbilt. And let the celebration begin. The streak is over at 26. The Commodores win it.
Talk about Vanderbilt football. All I gotta say, and you're going to hell. Bye.
Welcome in to Where's the Line? This is Joseph West, your host here. Missing my good friend Britt Dillard today, as he is, I don't even know what he's doing. I am joined here, though, by my good friend, my brother-in-law, Jordan Craighead. Jordan, how are you?
Doing wonderful. How are you, Joseph?
Doing fantastic. Coming off another great weekend of college football. It is great even if your team loses because we're still watching football. We do still have football. You only get it for 12 Saturdays. You better figure out some way to enjoy it. We'll start off on the UT side here. We'll go out east for a minute. Tennessee took on Oklahoma this past weekend, won by a final score of 25-15 in Norman, Oklahoma. Early thoughts about this game. I obviously had to go back and watch it because I missed the whole first quarter and probably 3 or 4 minutes of the second quarter when I was in Missouri. But Tennessee got off to a solid start, scored a quick 10 in the first quarter, had a pretty good first quarter. Ultimately, I think that just looking at this game as like a quick peek before I let Jordan get in here is that this game was just like insane. As the very first thing I saw was Nico's first fumble. I believe that was the first thing that I saw, and then Oklahoma immediately got the ball, and the next play turned the ball over, or their first play turned the ball over, and then like 2 possessions later, Tennessee turned the ball over. Nico fumbled again, and then Oklahoma fumbled again. So chaos is the word I would use to describe, especially the first half of this game.
Absolutely, yeah. What you're talking about there with the fumble. We had a fumble. I'm looking at the play-by-play right now. We fumbled. Next play, Oklahoma fumbles. And then 3 or 4 possessions later, we fumble again. Oklahoma, first play, fumbles again. So it's just absolute chaos.
What quarter was that, Jordan?
First quarter.
First quarter. Okay, yeah. So I guess I did see the first quarter then because I ended up getting back. I rewatched it all now, though, so we're all good. Yeah, that was crazy. Did not think. I guess to start on Oklahoma side, did not think Jackson Arnold was very good. I didn't think he was good prior to the game, just the little bits that I'd watched him against Tulane. I didn't think he was very good, but definitely not very good after playing Tennessee. 2 of those fumbles were just like, what are you doing? You're not even, I don't even know if you were trying to keep the ball in your hands. It was bad. But opening take, Jordan, how did you feel as a Tennessee fan coming off this game? Just give the vibe check here.
I mean, the score was 25-15, but this game really wasn't. I mean, it wasn't a 2-possession game. We dominated for the entire game, especially defensively. On offense, it was a little pulled back once Hopwood, seeing his defense force 3 turnovers in the first half. It's kind of like, okay, we really don't need to do anything on offense that puts this game in danger. So we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run it, and we're going to run some more. And throw occasionally. A little bit of that also had to do with playing 2 backup tackles with John Campbell out and then Lance Hurd not making the trip, which was apparently his own decision somehow. So what I'd heard from some Knoxville radio was that he was given bad advice, and usually that points to an agent saying, "Hey, if you're not 100%, you don't play. You might, cost yourself some money down the road." I think that considering knowing what John Campbell's going through, he's got a chronic knee issue stemming back to an injury that he suffered at Miami with an ACL. And he's out there, battling through it, toughening it out.
Right.
And then you've got a guy that comes in highly touted. I mean, he's a great tackle, and don't get me wrong. It's pretty selfish when you look on the other side at your other brother playing tackle, and he's toughing it out, and you've got a sore ankle that you set out a game last week and didn't play, and then on Friday you decide you're not playing again. I think that's pretty soft, and I'm sure there'll be some conversations had in that locker room on Monday or Sunday whenever they went back in. But overall, Tennessee, good performance, especially defensively. I think if we don't have the best defense in the country, we've got like top 2 or 3. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see when how Tennessee's hold up when their front 4, especially, just leave out the linebackers for a second. Just their front 4 in general has generated enough pressure, leaving out Peely and guys still at the second level, leaving those guys out. Just their front 4 has gotten a lot of pressure. I think the biggest question for Tennessee's defense is going to be is how are they when the defensive line isn't disrupting every single play? Because every opponent Tennessee has played thus far, their O-line has not been very good, and Tennessee's made them look even worse because their D-line is really good. I wouldn't say Tennessee has a top 2 defense in the country, but I would say their D-line is probably top 2, 3, 4, 5 in the country, at worst, top 5. So I think they have a really good D-line. I am interested to see how the secondary holds up when you've played Georgia, when you play Bama, teams that are going to be able to slow down James Pierce. You're never going to stop a guy like that, but just slow him down enough, slow down your other pieces at defense. I think that would be my number one question for Tennessee's defense. Just if I was a fan there. Looking at the offense played all right. I mean, like Jordan said, they kind of did ran it back, which I thought was really smart. Oklahoma's not getting any yards. Why do anything stupid? Hand it off, run the ball, punt. You're going to get a 3 and out, get the ball back, run it 3 more times, burn another minute and 20 off the clock at minimum if you don't even pick up any first downs. So it's like you're just going to win this game by sheer force. Like Jordan said, this was not a contest. I mean, Dylan Sampson had 24 carries for 92 yards. Bishop had 16 for 65 yards. So, I mean, that's, what is that, 40 carries right there? Nico had 8. That's 48 carries. I mean, they had 49 rushing attempts. I mean, that's
52.
Oh, 52?
Yeah.
ESPN must be. Where are you looking at? I'm getting my stats wrong
ESPN.
here. Okay, I'm getting my stats. I'm on just looking at like the Google page. So that's probably why I probably should have dove in a little bit more than the screenshot of the Google page. But anyways, 52 rushes attempts. That's insane. They only threw the ball 21 times. Nico 13 of 21 for 194 with 1 touchdown. If you're just to give some key takeaways, I'll give one and then I'm gonna let you give one, Jordan, if you have one. First thing here would be you got to be impressed about what you've done so far. I think for Tennessee fans, you've got to be happy with what you've done so far. I didn't think this game would be that close, but like Jordan said, it really wasn't. I mean, this game was in control for Tennessee at halftime. Like, if you ask me at halftime, like I never thought UT was losing this game after halftime. Oklahoma just simply could not pick up first downs.
Yeah. I mean, it's 22 to, like you said, it's 22-3 heading into the 4th.
Yeah.
And we had already committed to run the ball. But I think for my key takeaway was that defensive line. Like, we're so deep. I think his name is Jason Jenkins. He had a sack and a couple of tackles for loss. And I saw his number and I was like, who is this guy? Like, I need to go look at his recruiting profile a little, understand him and who he is a little better. But that's my key takeaway. The defensive line just disrupting. I mean, Oklahoma rushed the ball 34 attempts for 36 yards. And most of that, is coming from scrambles with the quarterback
Right.
at the end of the day. So, and if there's one takeaway to like maybe a little bit of a concern, I know the defense, they changed how they're playing, the calls and things like that, but a mobile quarterback could potentially give us a little bit of trouble. But outside of that, I think we're pretty good. That defensive line is going to create a lot of pressure But it will be interesting to see once they play Alabama and Georgia, better offensive lines. We really haven't seen one yet. But I think our depth will help us a lot there when we do see a good offensive line.
It certainly will. I think that Tennessee, they do have good depth on their defensive line, so I think that they could still generate pressure. But when you look at them, they're going to head into the bye week this upcoming week with Arkansas on the horizon. I think that I don't think UT has a true test until Bama. I believe that's the first true test. Everybody else is down. They have like a really bad something. No matter what it is. Arkansas, I mean, their offensive line once again pretty bad. It really took Auburn playing the absolute worst game they could in order to let Arkansas win. It was pretty bad. I think Auburn had 4 turnovers in that game. It was pretty bad. Hank Brown, though, Nashville kid, did get some playing time. Not very good playing time, Jordan, but he got it nonetheless. He did throw 3 picks in like a quarter. But anyways, yeah, so Tennessee sitting in a good spot, 4-0, heading into the bye. Jordan, I asked for the vibes earlier. I don't think I got an official answer. Give me a vibe check heading into the bye for just you and how you would think most of the fan base should be feeling.
I don't think it could be much higher, to be honest. Just considering where we've been last decade and a half, and to be where we're at now, both as not just as a football team, but just kind of the whole program in itself, from recruiting to the culture. I mean, you see those guys, I don't know if you saw the video of Heupel after the game, his little post-game speech. Like, those dudes love that guy.
Right.
And they will run through a wall for him. In today's college football, that probably means more than X's and O's at the end of the day, because transfer portal, if things don't go well, somebody's just going to hit the road, or if they feel like a coach doesn't care about them, they're going to find somewhere else to go play. And having that in place is, second to none.
I agree. A big slept-on ability there, just to be able to rally the boys, and that they're going to go to war for you no matter what. I mean, those guys, they're not the guys that are all the way body, and they're not going anywhere for an amount of money or for a better school or quote unquote better opportunity. I will take a step away from this for just a second. I'm going to ask you about Matthew Sluka, Jordan, just to give your comments on that. Obviously, he stepped away from UNLV today, an NIL dispute. I guess it's unknown right now is the best way to put it, exactly what went down. Maybe $100,000 was promised from a coach, maybe not, don't know. But Jordan, with kind of just the information that we have, which, like I said, may not be much or may not be great, what do you think about it?
I think as the Sluka family, if you were counting on something, you probably should have signed something instead of just a verbal, especially in today's world. If it's not in writing, you can't really trust it. So it feels like a mistake on that end. It's just kind of like, I hate to see it, especially for a group of 5 school. They're already, they're ravaged anyways. Because if they have a good player, and he plays well enough, well, he's going to a Power 4 school the next year. So
Yep.
As soon as you get somebody in, and he's been balling out, I mean, he's been playing good, playing well. And then you have this hiccup. It's just, I hate to see it.
Yeah, I mean, you're 3-0. You just knocked off back-to-back ranked opponents, I believe. I know for sure they beat Kansas, who was ranked. Barry Odom's done a great job at UNLV. I mean, when they beat Vandy, I mean, everybody really thought they sucked. And then they end up winning 11 games and having a really good year. And not that Vanderbilt should have ever lost that game, but just they're a really good group of 5 team. And I'm rooting for him. I hope they win. I think it's sleazy. I don't even know if this guy was really ever even promised anything or not, or if he didn't. There was reports that he went to Odom's office last week and said, I need more money because of my play. If that's the case, that's ridiculous. Like, that really is. They've created a beast. I just seen like 15 minutes ago, USC one of their starting defensive linemen enter the portal. He just redshirted, said he's not playing anymore. They've got to do something about that. That's crazy. That's not even college. I mean, it's going to ruin college football. If you got guys after 4 games getting pissed and saying, I'm redshirting and I'm out of here. That's not what the redshirt rule was put in. I think they need to overlook that this offseason. Like, they do not need to let that get out of hand. So I was just curious to see what you thought on that.
I definitely think there's got to be some rules put in place on the transfer. I know you can transfer as many times as you want now, but in terms of when you can enter the portal, I think that needs to be some type of rule. And honestly, I think you should have to stay. If you go somewhere, I think you should have to stay at least 1 year. Like you got to play.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be something.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
just the wild, wild west out here, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, I think if you commit to a school out of high school, I'm not saying you have to stay there the whole time, but you should at least have to stay there 2 years. I mean, you can redshirt a year. If you don't play your freshman year, you're going to redshirt, and then you're only missing 1 year of eligibility, and we're still giving you 3. So, and then same thing. Once you transfer in, let's say you're a freshman and you're like, okay, or a sophomore, and you're like, okay, I'm transferring. You got to stay there the next 2. You can go play a 5th year somewhere if you got redshirted a year, but you got to stay there 2 years. Like, I don't think that's too much to ask for unless your coach leaves. If the coach that recruited you leaves, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. I think that's a really great rule. So looking at Tennessee, like we said, 4-0 heading into the bye, just to recap that. Good spot. Jordan said vibes are high. So UT fans, your vibe should be high. Britt is probably saying something crazy right now, like Nico's the best quarterback in the country. The 74 QBR rating and 49th advanced analytics stats national rating does not say he's the best. Nico is a really good quarterback, just not the best. Just in case Britt Dillard is clamoring on the other line, because he will be, by the way, he will be recording by himself after this, so you will get to hear his opinions as well. So you're not missing totally out on Britt. Coming back out a little bit closer to us, Middle Tennessee, the big city of Nashville, the Vanderbilt Commodores traveled to Missouri, as did I, and took on the Missouri Tigers, number 7 ranked Missouri Tigers this past weekend. Man, what a game. I mean, what a game to go to. Double OT. Missouri Stadium was super cool. Columbia is a cool town. Just city of Jefferson City, however, the capital of Missouri, sucks. Never go there. Never go to Jefferson City. It sucks. Their bar closed at 9. Me and my boy Trev couldn't even get no food. It was ridiculous. So if you ever are in Missouri for some stupid reason, do not go to Jefferson City. But do stop by Faurot Field because it was cool. I'll give them that. The berm with the big M that you see on TV is super dope. I will give them that. The stadium itself is cool. It's pretty nice as well. So Missouri Stadium was dope. I'll give them that. Start there. From there, Missouri fans. Let me just recap everything about Missouri real quick. Missouri fans, super cool, except for like 3 dudes who came up behind me and Trevor. And then we made them leave. We bullied them into leaving, thank God. But anyways, double overtime game. Vanderbilt lost 30-27. Give an initial thought here, and then we'll give Craig one as well. My initial thought from this game is, one, I've never been more unsure about Clark Lee in my life than I am right now. I mean, I think that the first takeaway is that I've never known less about Clark Lee than I think I know right now. I will say Jordan kind of talked on Heupel, the players loving him, and I will say this. I think it means something when a coach can get his boys ready after a loss like to Georgia State. Those dudes wanted to play. They were still hungry. They haven't given up yet. I think that means something. I think if you still see that in Kentucky, the Kentucky game after maybe you've lost to Bama, and the Auburn game after you've probably gotten drilled by Texas coming to town, if he can still get them ready, I think that means a lot. And I think that goes much further than maybe if he can get a 5-star. I do. I think that goes a long way. So, but I've never just been more unsure totally about him. This team, and my final takeaway, and I'll shut up. This team is not a 2-2 football team right now. They're just not. They're not a 2-2 football team, and that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, my initial take, I watched about a quarter and a half before I got carried away with dad life on Saturday. I was impressed, especially coming off of the Georgia State game, which I watched probably the last 10 minutes of the Georgia State game, and just kind of saw, the body language across the team on both sides of the ball. Just didn't seem like it was there to finish that game. And then you flip on the game against Mizzou on Saturday, and the dudes were hungry. Like they were out there to get a win. They weren't trying to get embarrassed. They felt embarrassed enough coming off of last week, and they fought hard and arguably probably should have won the game. in my opinion, from what I've seen. Granted, I didn't see all of the second half and how that unfolded, but I did see overtime. And I think kind of, add on to what you said about Clark Lee. Not being a Vandy fan, I don't know a lot about him either, but it's confusing to see how well they played the first 2 weeks. Lay an egg, played super well against a top 10 opponent on the road. In what looked like a hostile environment. It looked like the place was rocking. It's just hard to understand. I know Vandy, from a player perspective, I mean, they're not on Mizzou's level, but they played up to Mizzou's level and beat them in certain areas. It's just confusing. So I totally get where you're at.
Yeah, if you look at, there's a guy on Twitter, his name is Parker Fleming. I really love like net success rates, and he calls it the "Did we really get beat that bad" sheet. So it's basically a sheet of advanced analytics, just talking about if you won in the trenches, if you won individual matchups, who won. Vanderbilt, every week that he's put it out, Vanderbilt has won every week. Vanderbilt is 4-0 by advanced analytics. So it's just, when you look, I think that even makes it more damning almost, because you look at it and you're like, we're outplaying these guys and we're still just finding a way to fumble the bag. Like, at some point you're just fumbling the bag. Now, Missouri, I really don't know how he gets that net success rate. I've seen 3 that had Vanderbilt winning against Missouri and 1 that had Missouri winning. So it's definitely not universal. But the one thing that I'll say is Vanderbilt did get some breaks in this game. Missouri's kicker missed 3 kicks. I mean, that's super helpful. But ultimately, a lot of people have talked about the defensive performance, and that's where I want to start. First of all, Brian Longwell. I think him and Langston Patterson are probably the best linebacker duo we've ever had. I mean, Brian Longwell had 11 tackles this week. Langston right behind him with 10. And they've been a great duo. If Longwell, he's just a sophomore. If he can get better in pass coverage, he's going to be one hell of a linebacker. Same thing with Langston, obviously just a sophomore there. The defense played well. Randon Fontenette at the star position got after the quarterback when he needed to, played well in coverage, had good defense on Theo Weiss. The secondary played well. I mean, they held Luther Burden to, I think it was 6 receptions for 70 yards. Yeah, 6 receptions, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of them, he was absolutely wide open for a 25-yard touchdown. And outside of that, I mean, they really contained him. They really had him and Weiss in the fourth quarter. That defense had Luther Burden in a straitjacket. That offense was not moving. It was almost, I leaned over to Trevor during the game and said, Clark Lee has let his nuts hang on this field. That man said, we may get beat, but it won't be because our defense didn't give us a chance. The defense allowed 0 points in the fourth quarter, absolutely played phenomenal after 4 minutes to go in the third. I mean, after about probably 4 minutes to come off the clock to start the third quarter. After that, and they gave up the touchdown drive, they were locked in. The offense has a lot of question marks, I think, just because they haven't been able to string it together consistently. Also, just to go back to the defense, Vanderbilt has real play in the trenches. I was almost skipped that point. Vanderbilt has real play in the trenches. Missouri has a pretty dang good offensive line and defensive line, and they corralled both of them. So I think Vanderbilt has real play in the trenches. One of the Missouri fans that I took it with texted me and said, I thought what impressed me the most was y'all on both sides of the ball in the lines. I thought y'all played really well. The offensive line played okay. I wouldn't go to say they played really well, but they played okay. Diego Pavia was 14 of 23, 178 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, also had 17 carries for 84 yards. That's where we'll start offensively. That man really does just will you to win. He really does try. He's not the greatest quarterback ever. He doesn't have the most elite arm strength. He's probably not even gonna thread it in a tight window between 2 men. But if you just need a play, I don't know who else anybody would want in America, honestly. I mean, he's that. He just makes a play. Like, if you just was like, we need a playmaker, I don't know who's better at it than Diego Pavia. He really is that good. Made a great throw to Joseph McVay to open the game. 65-yard touchdown to a true freshman. Stepped up in the pocket, delivered a dot, McVay to the crib. That's kind of what got the offense started. Also, oddly, that was the only snap McVay played the whole game. I think that's super odd when you can play 4 games and keep your red shirt and you're only going to play him 1 snap. But don't really know what was going on there, but I did think that was weird. Eli Stowers continues to be great for us. 7 receptions, 57 yards. He's been a great target for us. He always comes up big. When you just look at the offense, though, I mean, you look at the stats and you're like, Vanderbilt didn't play a bad game. They just stalled out too much, if you ask me. They just didn't finish drives. I thought the play calling was wishy-washy. The biggest question mark for me is the fade in overtime to Junior Sherrill. You try to throw a fade route up to a guy who's 5'10", maybe 5'11" if I'm generous, and it's a terrible throw. He loses his footing, and he just has to pull the cornerback down and live for another down. And I hated the play call, though. Great job from Junior playing defense, though, and yanking that dude to the ground and saying, we may lose, but it's not going to be on this play. I mean, Brock Taylor, shout out to Brock, too, just while I'm giving a rough recap. He had a 57-yard field goal before half on a very odd play by Missouri I don't know what they were doing, but I guess they didn't believe in the Brocket launcher, which is what we have nicknamed him, and I was screaming it from section 101. Brocket launcher, you've got it, and he bombed a 57-yard field goal between the uprights. So you hate to see missing a field goal, especially from 31 yards, right hash. I told Trevor, I said, I'll never forget that kick. I can still see it right now, visually, just him hooking it left. And it's brutal, especially with your right-footed kicker. You fade the ball. You're on the right hash. You're 19 years old. 65,000 people are screaming at you. Like, we was talking about it, like just trying to put yourself in the mind of a kicker. Because like quarterback, you've got the running back right beside you. Kicker, you're just standing out there, usually hands right here, and you're by yourself. It's you. It's you and 70,000 or however many screaming at you. So tough blow for him. Feel bad for him. But hey, I didn't blame the loss on him a bit. They should have converted on offense more. Clark Lee did enough to win defensively, and I think that's why you have to have a question mark for him. You want to blame him for last week and the loss to Georgia State, but then he puts together. Once we took care of the stretch runs, because they did have 220-something yards rushing, once we took care of the zone stretch runs they kept running, our defense was actually really freaking good against a team that has a first-round wide receiver pick, some goated O-lineman, and maybe not a great, but a proven SEC quarterback that he can get it done. So, I mean, I don't think you can say enough positive things about Clark Lee in this game, but no moral victories. I don't think you can have any. I think you can find excitement from the way that they played. You look at the schedule and you say, okay, we can't play with Texas. That's what I'm saying, right? That's what I told somebody. They asked me, they're like, who is the for sure loss this year? I said Texas. Everybody else, stop the run first, make some. I don't know anyone like Tennessee. My question would be, can Nico beat you by himself? Can he make every read? If you slow Dylan Sampson down, can Nico beat him by yourself? Jalen Milrose, same thing. If you take away his legs, can he beat you just throwing the football? I don't know the answers yet. Easily, we could get blown out by Bama and UT. I think everybody else, though, easily winnable. Not that we're going to win them, but you look at LSU, I would call them a worse team than Missouri. You look at South Carolina, I consider them a worse team than Missouri. Kentucky, worse team. Auburn, a worse team. And then you've got Ball State. So it's like those 5 games left on the schedule. If Vanderbilt was to win those, obviously you go 7-5. And then you're looking back saying, what the hell? The season should have been 9-3. Should have been the best season in Vanderbilt history. Like, you really could look back and say that. So I think either way, this season stings. But if you if you go bowling, then everybody's still able to look and see, hey, this is progression. For me, I can already see that this team is way better than last year. But I don't think recruits buy that. I think you've got to show it to them. You got to show them there's real progression. And the only way you do that is by going bowling. So I think Clark's got to find a way to do it.
Yeah. In terms of takeaways on the game, like, I don't have a whole lot to add. You kind of said everything needed to be said and said it well. I kind of want to go back to what you said about they just, find a way to fumble the bag or something like that. I think that goes back to, after with Vandy, I mean, they've not won a ton of football games in their history, especially, outside of James Franklin. You take him off, and you got kind of one other coach that had quite a bit of success. I think eventually you got to bust through and learn how to win, and you're going to have some of those struggles along the way. And unfortunately, you've had some of those this year when you've had a good team. Usually the best team wins, but it doesn't always happen, and it's usually because you're going through struggles of learning how to win. Right now you have 2 wins. 2022, you won 5 games. So most of these guys haven't seen wins or know how to do it. Doing it in high school, and then going to the SEC and learning how to do it all over again. It's not an easy task, especially when you play young guys. You play guys that transferred in. It's definitely a hurdle that you have to get over.
Yeah. Vanderbilt was in this game too. I never even touched on this, but missing our 2 best pass rushers. I mean, Zaylen Wood didn't play at all. Corday Sidnor from Purdue, the transfer, I think he got 18 snaps in, 15 to 18. It was less than 20 snaps. So you're missing your 2 best guys. That hurts. I mean, that's a difference maker. Sidnor is by far the best pure pass rusher on this team. I mean, Brady Cook he had a lot of time to throw on most of his dropbacks. He just did. The coverage was great. I don't think you can say enough positive things, honestly, about the coverage too. But I agree. I think some of it is about learning how to win, and I truly think they're on the brink. Like I thought this is what we was going to see last year. Like I said that after the Virginia Tech win on this podcast, I said I thought this is what I was getting ready for last year. Like I thought Clark Lee had really broke the mold, and I think it's tough because I think that sometimes Clark maybe doesn't spin it the right way to the players. Like he's really philosophical and he likes using big words. And listen, I'm 24 and I wouldn't even care what he's saying after about 5 minutes. I can't imagine a 19-year-old sitting in there and trying to care about it. So I think that might be kind of a problem, but I think if Clark Lee goes bowling this year, which I think's still on the table even after losing to Georgia State, I think bowling's still possible, that you do say he's the guy. I think that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm really at a loss. I'm confused in the moment because if Vanderbilt only beats Ball State the rest of the year, he's got to go. He has to go. Yet if they show me that performance, because I think if they give you that Missouri performance, they beat Kentucky, they beat South Carolina, they beat LSU's in Death Valley, so maybe leave that one alone for now. See what kind of fire they're in when they roll around. But and you beat Auburn. I think you can beat all 3 of those teams, and then you do that, you beat Ball State, you're 6-6. So honestly, it could go 2 drastic ways for Clark Lee and his staff. I think that I will say this though. One thing I like about this offensive staff is it's creative, it's interesting, it's fun. You don't see it. You don't see this sort of pistol offset option, like run first spread. Like it's kind of like a mixture of like 5 different offenses. You're like, what is going on? And so I think that's huge. That's definitely what Vanderbilt needs to do to succeed. So I think that's kind of what builds hope. And then, obviously Clark Lee's got the most acceptance from NIL and admin support that any coach has ever got. So I think there's so many different factors for me that matter, but ultimately it does just come down to results. If you're getting me 3 wins, but you're building my NIL to 20 million, well, ain't nobody gonna come here if we're only getting 3 wins. It's just simple. Yeah. We had to overpay for everybody in the portal we got this year. So and that's going to continue to be the case until we can show them that, hey, you're going to at least have a chance to win 9 or 10 games here. If you give them that chance, I think that it's then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we'll come here. We'll try to break the barrier. We'll see if we can't knock it down for you. So that's the pitch, if you ask me.
Yeah. What Pavia, what year is he?
He's a senior. He's a senior. Yeah.
Whoever's on the recruiting staff, you need to find another guy like him.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about, this is what you thought you were going to feel like last year. Pavia's the reason. He's a dog. Like
he
legitimately. Like he wants to win. He would put his body on the line to win.
Yeah.
Players get behind that. And you gotta, especially at Vanderbilt, I'm not trying to slide Vanderbilt, but that's you gotta have a guy like that at quarterback. Because if not, it's gonna be what you've seen.
You are against all odds at Vanderbilt already. That is the thing. I don't think saying where you're at Vandy is necessarily a slap. It does depend on how you say it, but Vanderbilt does have like one of the hardest jobs. In my opinion, the Vanderbilt head coach job, football job, is the hardest job in America. You've got to deal with all the academic rules, the admin breathing down your throat all the time, asking you 1,000 questions. Then you've got to try to come out and with no help from them and say, okay, we got to figure out a way to win. now. We got to figure out a way to win with limited resources, and that's something that you have to at least give Clark props to. Is, I mean, shoot, we spent $8 million in the portal last year. I couldn't imagine saying that 2 years ago. We didn't even have an NIL 2 years ago. So spend $8 million last year and kind of compete with the big dogs is definitely something you need. But 100%, another Pavia is needed. Pavia is special, and you're right. He's 5'11", 190 pounds, and he gets rocked and just. It's like that dude's insane. He just keeps getting up. He got absolutely clobbered. That you said you watched overtime when he laid out, trying to get the first down. That was, I mean, that's electric. You got a little 5'2" dude out, or 5'10" dude out here running around, giving his body on the line, trying to get a first down. Like you do have to respect that. I would ride for him. I mean, I'd put on pads and get clubbered every play for that guy. So a lot of respect for Diego Pavia. But yeah, Vanderbilt after that does have a bye week as well this week. And then we play out of Bama. We play Bama out of the bye. We want Bama, I believe. So we're going to show them how to play some SEC ball, or something along those lines. So
something like that.
we will get into that next week. But for now, it's all about gambling. I'm gambling this weekend. I'm going to the casino. So if you need me, catch me rich up in a helicopter or something, probably on Sunday. But let's get into some gambling picks. I'll let Jordan start it off. Jordan, give us your first pick here.
First pick, I'm going to go with Miami. They're at home versus Virginia Tech. The spread is minus 19.5. That feels kind of disrespectful to Miami and how they're playing, especially Cam Ward. He's been special so far this year.
Agreed. Cam Ward, very good quarterback. Also, that line does seem low. Virginia Tech coming off a really bad loss to Rutgers. And no really bad slight to Rutgers, because if I was their fans, I'd want some respect. They look much better than they did 5 years ago. That team is competent. That team can beat you if you fall asleep. So much respect to Rutgers and what they've done. Just personally wouldn't still don't feel confident in Virginia Tech covering that spread. So with my first pick, naturally, after talking about them, give me Rutgers over Washington this week.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and give my next pick. With my next pick here, we've got Minnesota at Michigan. I bet Michigan last week. Also, Britt said last week, I believe, something to the effects of this is the lock. USC isn't losing to trash Michigan. I'm tired of hearing about Michigan. I texted him and asked him how much money he won on that bet, but I haven't heard anything. Y'all have to text him and check in and see how much money he won on that. So naturally, once again, I'll be taking Michigan money line over Minnesota.
Sweet. My next one, I'm going to roll with Ole Miss at home versus Kentucky, minus 17.5. Jackson Dart, that offense, granted they haven't played anybody, but one thing to know about Lane, he's going to put up points. And I just don't think Kentucky can cover 17.5.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Jordan, go ahead and fire us another one.
Another one, Louisville, plus 6.5 at Notre Dame. I think Louisville's actually, they might make the ACC championship depending on what happens with Clemson down the stretch. Louisville's pretty good, and Notre Dame has suspect quarterback play.
They do.
So I think
Notre Dame's suspect team overall, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
My next pick is Northern Illinois plus 8 against NC State. NC State just let Clemson hang 59 points on them, and Clemson's offense sucks, respectfully. Not respectfully, actually, disrespectfully. Clemson's offense sucks. No idea what is going on there. I couldn't believe I got in over a touchdown, honestly. It's down to 6.5 now. That line started at 8.5. I got in at 8. So Northern Illinois plus 8 against NC State. Hey, NIU, Notre Dame. So they proved they can get it done to me. They got a good defense. NC State did score like 35 last week on Clemson. So this is a little sketchy, but I like it nonetheless. NC State, I think they really suck. Next game of the week. I've seen edits on it of TikTok, edits of this game on TikTok all day, and I don't even like either one of these teams, but now I'm hyped for the game. Georgia and Alabama heavyweight matchup do face off this weekend. That line is sitting at like 2.5 right now. First time Bama is a home underdog since 2007, the year that their number one wide receiver, Ryan Williams, was born, because he is 17 years old, which is insane. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Who's that coming down the tracks? We're taking the Dogs. That's all I got to say. We'll take the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend. Pat Pat, I had to give him some credit there, and Corey McDonald shout out. So we'll take the Bulldogs. My last pick, Oklahoma and Auburn. I just trashed Oklahoma. They do suck. Good news though, Auburn sucks worse. Give me Oklahoma.
I also had that game. Took Oklahoma -2. That's disrespectful. That defense for Oklahoma is really good. And Auburn they don't have a quarterback. Freeze said he didn't want to spend money, and he might be without a job if it keeps going down these tracks. And then my last pick, I've got Nebraska -10 at Purdue. Purdue is terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, Matt Rule believer.
Purdue might be they might be the worst team in the Big Ten. I know that's kind of reserved for Northwestern, but they're pretty bad.
Yeah.
And Nebraska's got an elite quarterback. I know he's a freshman, but he's very good.
Raiola is good. Raiola is very good. Just to run through my 5, and then Jordan, I'll let you do the same. My 5 was Rutgers over Washington money line, Michigan over Minnesota money line, Northern Illinois +8 against NC State, Georgia money line over Alabama, and Oklahoma money line over Auburn.
But I have Miami -19.5 versus Virginia Tech, Ole Miss -17.5 versus Kentucky, Louisville +6.5 at Notre Dame, Oklahoma -2 at Auburn, and Nebraska -10 at Purdue.
I like those. Also, lock of the week for me is going to be, you know what? Give me Georgia. I don't think Georgia loses to Alabama anymore. Nick Saban's gone. I don't think they can beat Kirby Smart. So give me Georgia lock of the week.
That's bold. My lock's Ole Miss.
Lock's Ole Miss. I like that too. Yeah, I like that. Jordan, where do you think the SEC sits right now as far as just teams throughout the country? Like, do you think the SEC is down this year? I've seen several talks about college football overall being down, and I think some of that is true as well. You just kind of caught a year where last year of COVID players, a lot of portal movement. Really, for the first time, you had this many guys in the portal. So you're kind of working through that as well. And you've seen you can strike out like Florida State did. I mean, Florida State got a ton of good dudes in the portal, and yet for some reason it's bad down there. They couldn't beat a team I assembled at YMCA. So it's bad. But just where do you think the SEC and football and college football sitting overall will end here?
I think the SEC overall, if you get rid of Mississippi State, is probably up compared to last year. That's what I'll base it off of. We're more top heavy, adding Texas, and then Tennessee's better. Georgia's Georgia. Ole Miss.
Bama's still good.
Yeah, Bama. I mean, you got 6 teams, 6 or 7 that are legitimate playoff contenders, depending on how the year shakes out. But overall, college football, it is down, in my opinion. It's kind of wide open for who could win.
Yeah.
Honestly, for the first time in a long time. Usually you say, well, Alabama will win, Georgia's going to win. You might get Michigan, you might get Ohio State. Like, there's been 4 teams for like the last decade.
Yeah. We've pretty much known.
Without, you had the off LSU and, things like that. But I mean, it's pretty wide open, and I think it's a lot of fun, especially as a fan, because you can turn on any game, whether your team plays at 11 or 7:30. Like, you can watch good football games the entire day.
Agreed.
Because there's good football being played everywhere. It's just not as elite, I guess you could say.
That's fair. I agree. I think it's super wide open. I really think Miami's got a good shot. Kim Ward, like Jordan talked about him, he looks freaking elite. So I think they've got a good shot. Ohio State looks to be a pretty dang good football team this year. I probably wouldn't give anybody else in the Big Ten a look, honestly. Texas, obviously super good. Interested to see kind of what they do with quarterback moving forward. I expect them to give it back to Ewers, but you never know. So we'll kind of see what that takes. But a lot of good football teams. I would say the SEC might be down. That's just because the bottom half might be really bad. Like Kentucky might really suck. South Carolina might really suck. Florida does really suck. Mississippi State sucks. Auburn sucks. Like, there's just some things we know already. And you're like, wow, these teams are not very good. Like, I don't know if some of the bottom tier teams in the SEC, like Auburn, I really don't know if Auburn could beat like a group of 5, like UNLV right now. I don't think Auburn beats UNLV. Like, they're not good. No, they have not been very good. So, there it is. This is I didn't say the episode. Open it up. Britt's probably going to be mad at me. That's okay though. I don't normally open this podcast up, so that's not completely my fault. This is though episode. It's an episode for sure. Let's see. This is episode 138. Episode 138. Thank you for listening to episode 138. Wait, I'm not closing the podcast off. Just kidding. You're now going to go over and listen to Britt speak. So have fun listening to Britt jack off Nico Lamalaweo, or however you say his name. No disrespect, Nico. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Jordan, multi-time guest of the pod. I think he's like the only one. So shout out Jordan for keep coming back to us. Jordan, we appreciate you. And Britt, take it over. Anchor down.
Hello? Can anyone hear me? Am I here? I'm all alone. Going to get a few minutes of me uninterrupted here. I've got some notes. We're going to talk about Tennessee versus Oklahoma. Went down Saturday night in Norman, Oklahoma. Tennessee comes away with the victory 25-10 under the lights. Prime time, ABC, Kirk Herbstreit. All eyes were on Tennessee versus Oklahoma after the Michigan USC game was over, obviously. Tennessee, a gritty, dominant defensive win against an Oklahoma team that has a lot to figure out coming out of this game, particularly at quarterback. But, I mean, let's just get right into it. Nico Iamaleava made some impressive throws Saturday night. He was 13 for 21, 194 yards, and a touchdown. Had two big plays, one to Thornton for a touchdown across the middle. Amazing throw, perfect throw, great throw. Had another good throw to Brew McCoy. A great catch by Brew McCoy. You heard in the stadium, Brew, like it was like they were playing in Knoxville. The Brew was so loud. I think there was a pretty good turnout in Norman, but Brew ended up with 4 catches for 92 yards. Just pretty dang efficient. That wide receiver room is really starting to find their legs if they hadn't already. Dylan Sampson, 8 yards short of his 5th consecutive 100-yard game. He had 24 for 92 yards and a touchdown. Dylan Sampson's that guy. Probably one of, if not the best players on this Tennessee team. Is leading the SEC, maybe even the country in rushing touchdowns. He's got 10. Offense, a lot of complaints coming out of this game from some people that may not be as smart, complaining about the offense. Listen, you went on the road at night against a top 15 team in conference. Josh Heupel's home. They're out for blood. And you just grinded them down. I mean, this game was over at halftime. It was 19-3 at half, and I mean, it was over. You did have your streak of scoreless quarters broken. I think it broke at 20. It's just pretty, or no, it broke at 18, but just pretty dang impressive. Listen, Tennessee didn't have to score 50 points to beat Oklahoma. In my opinion, I think they only had to score 12. At one point, it was 12-3. Oklahoma was not. If we didn't want Oklahoma to score more than 12, we wouldn't have. And it's just simple as that to me. You saw the clip of Josh after the game. I mean, he tells Nico, "Hey, I let off the gas. Our defense was playing so good, I let off the gas." There's a lot of different factors that went into this game. One, the field conditions were terrible. You had players falling left and right, whether they were fake injuries or not. There were players all over the field. Saw some pictures of big, basically holes in the field, just not very well maintained at all. That's one. You don't want your quarterback to get hurt on this crappy playing surface. Last time we played on a crappy playing surface, Hendon Hooker destroyed his knee. Sorry to bring that up, but it happens, and it's a real thing. Another reason, Josh Heupel, he definitely still has a soft spot for Oklahoma. You could see he was emotional, definitely wanted to beat Oklahoma, I don't think he had it in him to just cut their head off. I really don't think that he felt any need to do that. Another reason, and I'll get into it more in just a second, you struggled on the offensive line Saturday night, and it is a concern, but you had both your tackles out for most of the game. The only breaks that Oklahoma got in this game were when you dropped back to pass, couldn't protect Nico, and he fumbled the ball. We got to work on holding on to the ball, Nico, but we have to protect our 5-star quarterback better than that. So, in my opinion, if that's the only breaks they're getting when you're dropping back to pass and your defense is playing lights out, just run the ball, kill the clock, and get out of there. And that's exactly what Tennessee did. So Tennessee fans have become so spoiled by Josh Heupel scoring. I know we're averaging more than 30 points a game under Josh Heupel. This is only the second game in Josh Heupel's coaching career that he has scored less than 30 points and still won the game. The only other was last year against A&M when your defense showed out. But you're normally going to roll out of bed and score at least 30. Tennessee fans have become accustomed to that. We're just not used to having a defense to rely on. And that's just something for us to complain about. There's not much to complain about on Rocky Top right now. So chill out. Our offense is great. It's elite. Nico is amazing. Dylan Sampson is amazing. We have 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 very, very good receivers. We're going to get our O-line back healthy. We simply did not have to score 40 points to beat Oklahoma Saturday night. So just stop that. Stop. Oklahoma fans, you did not shut us down. We could have put up 50 if we wanted to. We dominated you. So if you're going to worry about anything on this offense, it's the offensive line. Like I said, you had 2 tackles out for the majority of the game. Lance Hurd did not make the trip. He sat last week against Kent State, and you kind of thought that it was just kind of a maintenance week for him. But didn't see him again Saturday. Josh Heupel says he'll be back against Arkansas. So, I mean, he'll have almost a month off, counting Kent State, Oklahoma, the bye week. Should be fresh for Arkansas if his injury is not as bad as hopefully we think it is. I won't get into it too much, but I think Josh Heupel is not very truthful about injuries, but most coaches aren't. And John Campbell has not played at Tennessee a full game. He just has chronic knee issues, but like Josh said, he would be back against Arkansas. We'll just hope for that. But Dane Davis ain't going to cut it at left tackle. Dane Davis simply is not to the standard of play that Tennessee needs to have at left tackle with your 5-star quarterback in the backfield. Listen, Dane Davis is a guy, he's a local kid. I don't think he's from Knoxville, but he's from East Tennessee. He's put his time in. He has given his all, but he simply has no business being on the field for Tennessee. It's a similar. It reminds me of Jacob Warren. Maybe not that bad. I think Jacob Warren was a decent player, but I think a lot of the reasons why him and a little bit of Joe Milton in there is just guys that have put their time in. They care about the program. They do a good job in practice, so they get a chance to play. Or in this scenario with Dane Davis, he had to come in and play. But yeah, you've got to have your tackles back for Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas is a tough team. Coming into the year, we thought Sam Pittman might be one of the first coaches fired. They're playing very, very well. They have a good quarterback. They've got a spark there, and they're winning games and playing on the road in the SEC at night after a bye week, which is a good thing for us. But it will be tough. Tennessee will win that game, but you need to have your tackles. Larry Johnson III played the other tackle for most of the night. He came in at left some. Played right most of the time. Larry Johnson looked decent. He was graded out as our best offensive lineman, so maybe he's serviceable, but we've got to get at least one of these tackles back, preferably both. But if you're going to worry about the offense, worry about the offensive line, because at this point, it's the weakness of the team, which if I heard myself say that 4 or even 3 weeks ago, I would say you're crazy. But Tennessee's defense might be the story of college football right now. Tennessee's defense is very, very good, and it starts on the defensive line. Tennessee's defensive line depth is absolutely insane. You've got 10 to 12 guys that you feel comfortable with playing at any point in the game. And Oklahoma is where it really showed through. In the fourth quarter, you've got guys with fresh legs coming in. And I mean, those guys that are on the bench, they've been waiting all day to get in. They're hungry and they're fresh and they want to get sacks. And that's exactly what they did. Jackson Moy, the transfer, came in and was blowing things up. This defensive line is legit. It is absolutely legit. In the secondary, you went in the transfer portal and got some absolute dogs in the transfer portal. Jacoby Thomas from MTSU, the Middle Tennessee Missile, can absolutely lay the boom on people. You've seen it twice the last 2 weeks. He can absolutely lay people out. New segment alert. Freak of the week. Every Tennessee win, we got a freak of the week. Jacoby Thomas, congratulations, sir. You are the freak of the week for absolutely destroying Oklahoma's running back. We love you, Jacoby. Welcome. Jermon McCoy had an interception. He's graded as one of, if not the best cornerback in the country right now. Another transfer, playing absolutely lights out. Your secondary has improved so much. Boo Carter is such a good player. He's just does not play like a true freshman should play in the SEC. Excuse me. Your linebackers have come around. Getting back Keenan Pili, absolutely huge. I think having William Inge as your linebackers coach is a big deal. I think he's a good coach, but I think more having Keenan Pili back, having Arion Carter with another year in the system, and those guys, they're just playing lights out. The whole defense they're motivated, they're faster, they're meaner, they hit harder, they turn their head around when the ball's thrown. I mean, it's been a complete turnaround for Tennessee's defense from year to year. And I mean, a lot of Tennessee fans owe Tim Banks an apology. And I myself, Britt Dillard, am not one of those people. I have been on the Tim Banks train for 3 years. I've said the defense has not been the problem, especially last year. So all those people, don't jump on the bandwagon now because this is Tennessee's last year with Tim Banks. Tim Banks will be hired by a college football team to be their head coach because of this defense this year. And he owes Rodney Garner a big chunk of that check because his defensive line has been amazing and has really propelled this defense to be really good. So, flying through the notes here. Tennessee's on a bye week this week. Rest up and go play Arkansas. And then Florida the week after. You've got a big stretch coming up. A lot of good games on this next week. You've got Georgia, Alabama. That's the main one. Hope both of them lose. But looking at the outlook of the college football playoff after week 4, Tennessee's chances moved to 80% or more, according to FPI, ESPN, to make the college football playoff. Assuming you do not completely fall on your face, Tennessee will be in the college football playoff. And I almost don't want to stop there. What I almost want to say is Tennessee will be in the SEC championship competing for a bye in the college football playoff. That's what I want to say. I think Tennessee may be playing Texas in the college football playoff. If you look at Georgia's schedule, Georgia has a very tough schedule. They play Texas, they play Alabama this weekend, they play Ole Miss, and they play Tennessee later in the season. 4 very good offenses and 2, maybe 3, if you count Texas, really good defenses. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Georgia could easily be a 2 or 3 loss team by the end of the year. Now, I think a 9-3 Georgia may still get in. I don't know. I think Georgia could be a 9-3 team this year. And depending on how it shakes out, I think Tennessee could be that number 2 spot to play in the SEC championship. And Tennessee fans, It's such a crazy turnaround. Tennessee fans, this is the year. Okay. We say that a lot. This is the year. There is no next year. Next year, you're losing offensive linemen. You're losing a lot of your defensive line. Oh, no. I don't know if I'm still here. I think I'm still here. Okay. Next year, you're losing offensive linemen. You're losing a ton of your defensive line. You're probably losing Dylan Sampson. You're going to lose some receivers. This year, 2024, is Tennessee's year to compete for the national championship. And Tennessee fans, we need to prepare ourselves. This, for the last 26 years, Tennessee has been a laughingstock. Tennessee, there's no way Tennessee can get in. But I'm telling you now, everyone under the sound of my voice, prepare yourself. Tennessee this year will compete to play in the national championship. I can promise you that. Tennessee has a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. Currently, the number 1 defense in the country, according to NCAA.com and their total defense, whatever it's called, their metrics. You're allowing 3 yards per play, 3.1 yards per play. On offense, you're ranked 4th in total offense, 7.3 yards per play on offense. In my lifetime, I have never watched a Tennessee team that is this good. I'm telling you now, prepare. You Vandy fans listening, prepare. Tennessee will compete for the national championship this year. I'm unprepared. I don't have any gambling picks. Whatever Joseph says, let's ride with it. I will say this, whatever the line is for the first quarter in, well, that's not even this week. We'll take the week off betting. Nico won me a lot of money last week on the first quarter over. So that's the only for sure bet in college football at this point. Not going to touch on Vanderbilt. No moral victories. You went to Missouri. You played hard. Probably should have won the game, but you didn't. Listen, Missouri's not taking away from Vanderbilt. Missouri's not a good football team. They're not. They have playmakers. They're not well coached. They're not a good football team. But it doesn't matter. Going on the road in the SEC is tough to do. And Vanderbilt, they certainly gave up a good fight going down. So nothing but respect for Vanderbilt. They're a program that is trying to make their way up the ladder. Definitely showing some progress this year, even if it's not on the win-loss, but Vanderbilt. Anyways, this has been Britt and Jay Money and JC Craig Money. Thank you for listening to Where's the Line. We'll be back next week, full swing together. Remember to choose joy this week. Enjoy some football. Hope you guys have a good one. Go Vols.